Hey guys, I'm going to do the install video today of the 6-liter Camel Tank auxiliary fuel tank on the Honda CRF250L. The 250L is a really great dual sport motorcycle. The one shortcoming that it does have is it's got a very small fuel tank. So the bike will get you basically where you want as long as you have enough fuel. So we're going to mount our 6-liter auxiliary fuel tank on the back here on the opposite side of the exhaust. The install is very straightforward. It will take you less than an hour to do. The two things we need to take off of the bike is the helmet lock and the storage compartment. Before we can install the tank and the brackets, we need to remove the helmet lock and the storage compartment here. On the helmet lock, there's some small button head screws that are actually security heads, so you can't simply put an Allen wrench in there and spin them out. So the easiest way to do them, you can't get vice grips on, we tried with that too. The easiest way to do it is if you have a Dremel with a cutoff disc or an air grinder, and basically we just take this button head and we cut a slot in it, and it's really quick to do. And then once we have a slot in there, you can actually back them out with a flat blade screwdriver. So we're just going to do that here. There's two on the back side here of this bike, and because we're working outside, I'm going to have to fire up the generator, so it's going to be a little bit louder. I just put small grooves in each one of those. And then we can get a flat blade screwdriver on it. So now I've got slots cut in both of these, and it literally took about 10 seconds per screw. And then with a flat blade screwdriver, we can get a bite on them. We have the helmet lock off. We're going to take off the storage compartment here. So you're just going to open it with your key. And then there's two fasteners here that hold it on. I'll spin this guy out. Note here that there's the spacer insert that holds on either the front or the back. We're going to reuse it in that location when we mount the front bracket, so keep it handy. The storage compartment removed and the helmet lock out. We need to remove this pin here, and it's normally used to tie things down for bungee cords, and it's a 6mm Allen wrench. And we're going to take that out, set it aside. We won't need it again. And we have our fastener packages that come in the kit here. And there's not very many pieces, but in bag number 2, there's a couple of M8 by 25 Allen head bolts, and we're going to grab one of those to put back in this location. Everything that we do on the bike, we want to use medium strength thread lock, and we can put that bolt back in. You do need to put a bolt in because this fastener holds on the tail section of the bike, or the rear fender. Underneath the tail section here, there's 2 bolts that hold the rear license plate holder to the subframe, and we're going to take those out and we're going to replace them with some longer bolts and some spacers for the rear Camel Tank bracket. So the 2 we're going to take out are in here. Okay, so these are 10mm heads. So we're going to take our socket, or our ratchet with our socket. And that's them there. In that same location, we've got some 25mm spacers and some M6 bolts. So this rear mounting bracket plus a spacer and the M6 bolt are going to mount back into those holes that we just took the original factory screws out. Again, we're going to put a dab of blue Loctite on here. And the holes on this rear mounting bracket are slotted, so we're not going to tighten them up all the way until we get the tank mounted. And then we can make all of our fine adjustments towards the end. So we're just going to leave that loose so that we have some room to wiggle. When you pull the tank out of the box, it's a bare tank, there's nothing on it. So there's a few things that we need to add to it before you can mount it on the bike. The first thing is the fuel supply fitting, and it's a 1/4-inch barb on an ORB fitting. And also in the kit, we have a stainless steel backing washer and a sealing washer. So on the stainless steel washer, there's a bevel on one side, which is going to be hard to see on the video. We need to make sure that that bevel is pointed at the O-ring on the fitting, like that. And then we'll put the sealing washer on behind it, and then the whole thing screws into the tank. And this is a 14mm fitting, so you can use a wrench or a deep socket. And when you tighten this down, you just want to watch for the sealing washer to come out about a 1/16 of an inch or a millimeter or so. Don't over tighten it. It doesn't need to be very tight to seal. And on the back side, we have embedded inserts here for the different brackets. So we're going to add those now. And again, they're going to get the medium strength thread lock. And this is our front mounting bracket, and the holes on this are slotted as well. And we're going to be installing with the M6 button head screws. Again, these are all going to get the thread lock. So the front ones, because they're slotted, again, we're not going to snug them up right away. We're going to leave them loose until we get everything mounted, and then we can make adjustments at that time. And we're just going to tighten these up so that they're contacting the bracket, but it's still loose. And then we have our main mounting bracket here. We'll just go into these 4 inserts there, and again, it's the button head M6 bolts. So the holes that are in the bracket are a little bit bigger than the screws themselves, so we can leave them loose, and it gives us a little bit of wiggle there. And again, we'll tighten all this up once we get the tank on the bike. I'm going to go to attach the front bracket to the bike. We're going to use one of the spacer inserts that came out of the storage compartment. So it's going to go back in that same hole. And then we have an M6 by 25 hex head bolt. It's going to go through the front of the spacer here. Again, we're going to put some Loctite on this. And so when I go to put the tank up onto this mounting bracket here, we're going to have a non-nylock M8 nut. It fits on the back side here. There's simply not enough room between the plastic bit on the subframe and this bracket to get a nylock in here. So you do want to put some Loctite in there. And then we have our 1/4-inch spacer that's going to go on here, and then our M8 by 25 bolt and flat washer is a little bit tricky. So if you have somebody that can give you a hand, it's definitely a good time to use it to get this all started. We may drop the nut a few times. All of our tank kits are coming with the tethered fuel cap now. So before we get this all bolted up, you want to make sure that you get the loop on the tether around that main bracket. And our M8 by 25, the 1/4-inch spacer behind it. And we got it started there. And again, we're going to leave that loose, and we're going to come to the back of the tank, where we're going to put in the remaining 2 M6 button head bolts. On the back here, we're just going to wiggle this bracket around until you can see the inserts here, and get these ones started. And we're going to get our 13mm wrench on that nut on the back side here, and tighten this one up first. That's good. And then we're going to come to the front, and we're going to tighten this fastener. And then we're going to come back to the back of the bike here. I can cut all that out. And we have the 2 hex head bolts here. Tighten those up. And now we can go along and tighten the 8 button heads. Now that we have the tank mounted, we can tackle the plumbing. It's a really straightforward system. We actually transfer from the Camel tank into the main tank using vacuum. So if you look up on the bike here, from the bottom of the tank, there's a gray tube that comes off, and this is the vent tank. It normally ties into a T here, and we're going to pull it. We're going to pull it off of the T. And then we're going to take the connector barb that we include in the kit and slide it on and secure that with a hose clamp. When you get the kit, there's actually 3 hose clamps here. There's 2 different sizes. There's one of the smaller size and 2 of the larger. We're going to take the smaller and put it on the gray hose here. We're going to take the armored fuel line that we include in the kit, take one of the larger hose clamps, slide this on beforehand, and then slide that onto the barb. And secure with the hose clamp. The T-fitting that's on here can actually be left open because this is a drain that goes to the ground. This doesn't need to be clamped. You don't need to worry about getting dirt or anything in there, water. It's not an issue. We're going to take the fuel line and run it over top of this tube on the frame. And pull it down. When you do this, this gray tube is thinner material, so you want to make sure that you don't kink it. And when you get it through here, we're going to come down and we're going to be right by the foot peg here. So once we feed the fuel line through, we're going to put on the 3rd hose clamp, and we're going to slide it around the fuel supply barb on the Camel tank. And we have the vent line here, and we're going to go to the vent barb on the Camel tank, and again secure with a hose clamp. It's best to be wearing safety glasses when you do this. These springs are quite strong. And then from there, we're going to feed the line behind the bracket here. And there's a hole here that's going to be a great spot for a zip tie. And then we're going to come up around. There's a little bump out here in the plastic on the subframe. We're going to come around that and then back down again. And that just keeps it up and out of the way. We're going to come to the front of the tank, and we're going to zip tie the vent hose about here. And then we're going to run along and secure the fuel supply line and the vent line using these 2 holes in the frame. I'm just going to come out the one hole, back through the other, and before we put the zip tie back onto itself, I'm going to get the hoses in between. And you don't need to tighten those up very tight. You don't want to kink or crush the hoses. So in beside the shock absorber, there's a solid wire loop, which is right here. And it holds some hoses and things for drains and vents and whatnot, and they go down in front of the suspension linkage. It may be hard to get the hose through that loop and hold the camera at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I can show you after what it looks like. So now you can see we have the vent hose through the wire loop with the rest. Now that we have the vent line through that wire loop, we're going to take the loose end and we're going to route it actually to the other side of the bike, just ahead of the swing arm. And there's already 2 or 3 vent hoses that are already over there, so this will be draining at the same spot that they are. So we have the vent hose coming through that wire loop and over to the opposite side of the bike. These are the factory locations here for vents, and we're going to take ours and run it through the same spot. There's a wire loop that there's no way you're going to see in the video, but it's just behind the frame here, and with a little bit of wiggling we can get our hose through that same spot. And once we get this through the second wire loop, we've got the Camel Tank vent coming out of the same location as the factory units. That wraps up our installation video for the 6-liter Camel Tank on the Honda CRF250L. If you have any questions, concerns, you can always get a hold of us at info@cameltank. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.